Perfect. So we are live there. We are bang on time, as ladies always are. So a good evening and a warm welcome to all of you on day 3 of the Big Brand Story. And organized and brought to you by Photon Legal in association with the Indian Lawyers Association. Uh, I'll begin with introducing our speakers for the panel. I have a very yeah, just a moment. Yeah, we are also going live on YouTube. So yeah, I had the parallel session running as well. So okay, coming back to the introductions, let's begin our webinar with briefly introducing our eclectic panel. So our first speaker for the day is Miss Jyoti VK from Aditya Birla Fashion Limited. Jyoti is the General Counsel and Vice President at Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail Limited. She leads the legal affairs and all legal risk management across the diverse, not just that, she's also a certified Aditya Birla Business Excellence Assessor. She has mentored and trained the legal team to pursue excellence through building of in-house expertise. Her specialisms involve privacy laws, intellectual property rights, celebrity endorsements, national brand licensing, joint ventures, brand promotions, just to name a few. She also has numerous awards, recognitions, and honors to her name, including the Functional Excellence 2020 Award by Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail. She was also the GC, General Counsel of the Year 2019, also a avid learner, orator, and she has attended several national and international conferences, including the recent ones in Tokyo and Singapore. She believes in empowering teams with a process and value-driven culture. Truly honored to have you with us, Jyoti. Welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, Vaishnavi. It's my privilege too.
Excited to have you as well. Our next speaker is Ms. Ankita Sharma from Marico Limited. Ankita is the manager legal. She specializes in brand protection, intellectual property litigation, trademark prosecution, and her rich is around the FMCG industry. She is also experienced in compliance management of personal care products and the press releases and legal metrology, drugs and cosmetics act. She has been also honored with several awards. A couple of them are the CXO award by Marico. She was awarded this in 2020 for well-known declaration of one of the, and she has also been awarded the Marico Values Award for her exemplary display of Marico values in combating unfair competition. Wow. Excited to have you on board, Ankita. Looking forward to hear from you.
Thank you, Vaishnavi. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Likewise, Ankita. And Ms. Anu Kemal. Anu is the brand strategist. She, by position, she's working as at Ogilvy. Her specialties include brand positioning, brand personality, design strategy, and strategic planning. She has extensive experience of working with CG, fashion, lifestyle, and various retail brands. She is passionate about applying principles of behavioral economics to brand building. She's also keen on working on ways to optimize digital mediums to create social impact through policy advocacy. That is really inspiring. So glad to have you all on board.
Thank you.
So yeah, so beginning this story, let's about the big brand story now, and I have some questions for you. The questions aren't really scripted because we wanted this to be a candid interview. Only shared the key points of discussions with you. So let's see how it works out. So my first question is to Jyoti. So Jyoti, before we begin with the actual brand story, I would like to know a bit about your own story, your a highly inspiring and motivating professional journey. I can see that you have worked so hard and with such diverse big brands. So how has it been in the legal world? If you could share some.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, well, I come with about 23 years of a professional experience, and I have had a mixed career. I would say I was practicing in High Court of Karnataka earlier. I was there for about 7 years, and then I moved on to this corporate world. So it's been 12 years here. And sorry, it's been 16 years here. So my count is going wrong. So here in Aditya
It's
Birla, I've
okay.
been for 11 years now, and it's been a wonderful journey because I've grown along with the company. Because the company then was
Sure.
about 1,000 crore apparel business at that point in time in 2010, and today we have grown close to about 9,000 crores. It's a little less, but then it is like about 8 to 9 times growth in the last 10 years. So alongside the company, I have grown, my function has grown, and I would proudly like to say that the key contribution that I made to my company is the way my function is perceived. As I'm sure everyone will agree that generally legal function is seen as a support function. But then today, I really worked hard to make it a true business partner. And today the business looks up to us as a business partner because we really work with them alongside and just not give some decisions sitting on the fence. And of course, we have used technology in a big way, and then we really built the brands, we have protected the brands, managed the brands passionately, other than other verticals. Since this is more of brand discussions, I would like to simply focus there. And big portfolio, more than 1,500 trademarks and patents, copyrights, and stuff like that. A lot of learning along way. And I'm really happy that I've built a great team, a robust IPR vertical, especially. And then on the personal side, I must say that I'm a marathoner. I completed a long, like my first marathon, that's about 42.2 kilometers.
Wow.
It's in Stanford Marathon, Mumbai. And what's important here is it's just not for me. I have actually used the learnings the marathon has taught me, like basically the certain things like, kind of persistence and resilience, and that I've not only incorporated in my life, in my professional life, but I've also imparted it to my entire team. So my 23 strong team today, everybody is like fitness conscious today. And that's because of my, the marathon journey. So that's about me. I hope I didn't take up much time.
No, no, not at all. We really liked to hear you out, and yeah, it's quite motivating. So thanks for sharing your journey with us, Jyoti.
Thank
On
you.
to Ankita. So Ankita, there's one interesting thing which I observed while I was going through your profile and I was preparing myself a bit, and it was this quote which you have mentioned, and it says that you strongly believe that the secret of getting things done is to act. So that's amazing philosophy. I mean, first, if you want to get some things done, then the first thing is that you need to act on it. So, and I also learned that you are a self-motivated and result-oriented individual. So, like Jyoti shared her experience, I would like to know a bit more about your legal as well. So, over to you, Ankita.
Thank you, Vaishnavi. So, very beautifully shared by Jyoti her experience and the way she had grown the entire vertical by her own self. I also come from a litigation background, and Marico happens to be my first corporate job. So when I was inducted as a member of Marico, the entire vertical for intellectual property was not very organized. While I say this, the entire IP was managed quite manually, and a portfolio of more than 2,500 trademarks, domestic and international, is a very big portfolio. So the responsibility was, yes, of course, on my shoulders was very high. And the amount of knowledge that I had gained while working, not before I had joined Marico, what I possessed and while working were quite different. So when you hold a degree in intellectual property as masters, it is very, very different than what you go and display at your workplace. So while I had taken care of the entire intellectual property and automated the processes, bought in the softwares to automate the entire process, to link it with the registries, I think the most important part here was to build the entire IP and the entire brand in itself. So, as again, coming back to the topic of the brand, the big brand story, I think that's where the entire route goes. That how I and my very able team managed to put forth the entire intellectual property for a big organization. Having said that, the amount of exposure to take everything in house has been very magnanimous, and the learning that we get out of it is innumerable. So I think that is where I would really want to thank my organization for giving me this particular opportunity to grow and to learn, and of course to manage and maintain the high paced systems which are currently going into managing the intellectual property. And it's not only one angle from which we protect our brands. They are multifaceted, and they are vast in number, in which we have to think about. So yes, that's about the journey.
Incredible and again motivating. So thank you for those. Thank you for sharing all these details with us, Ankita. So over to Anu. Anu, you're the planning director at Ogilvy, and I hope I'm pronouncing it right. So Ogilvy, yeah. And so you also worked as a brand strategy consultant.
Yeah.
You were briefly associated with famous innovations as well. And you also bring this experience of academic experience of behavioral economics. So how did everything of this fall in place for you? I can see you associated with like innovations. You also associated with economics, and now you're into planning and brand strategizing. So I would really like to know more about it from you, Anu.
Yeah, so of course, I mean, when I sit in this panel, I'm really overwhelmed, because the number of experience and the kind of journey that these really incredible women have had. I have a meager 8 years of experience, honestly. And, after when I started off, I was very clear as to I want to get into brand strategy. After my MBA, I was very sure about it. The more I explored, the more interesting it became, because I realized that there's so many facets to a brand, right from really delving deep into the consumer psyche and understanding what they really want and how they communicate and what the psychology of the whole thing is, to really creating concepts out of thin air, really working to create. And it's like giving birth. I mean, I know it's a mother would probably chop me, but what I'm trying to say is, when you sort of spend so much time and create
Sure.
something, it really is incredible. And after spending about 4 to 5 years in the industry, I felt that there's so much potential for branding and communication to do something in the social sector as well. That's when I'm a political science student. I have done political science in my BA. So that's what I thought of, sort of wanted to bridge this gap that's there, whereas all the big corporations are doing really well in utilizing this power of communication and branding. There's a lot of that can be done in the social impact phase as well. So I also studied policy making a little bit, understood how policy advocacy works, and try to work with NGOs and social sector companies to create impactful digital communication. Um, so I also did a fellowship with Rise Up for Girls and stuff. So that's how these two worlds met. And like I was exploring further and realized that currently brand is entirely based on culture and cultural and consumer behavior. Further, if you delve deeper, it is the behavioral aspect that's going to matter a lot. And especially after COVID, we realized that a lot of campaigns, a lot of branding is around the behavioral aspect, because we are trying to engineer human behavior. We're trying to give nudges. And I came across the book called Nudge, and that sort of changed my life. And I sort of went deep into what is behavioral economics, how can we use it for marketing, how can we use it really in the world of brand. It has been used in the hospital industry, medical industry and stuff like that. So that's how. And I've been a brand consultant. I've worked with a lot of startups. I worked with IM Bangalore's NSRCL, which is a startup community. So I've interacted with a lot of startups, and I think my understanding of the legal aspect of brand came in mostly at that phase, because when you're creating a brand, after the entire creation process is over, and after you've sort of brought in the founders on board and stuff, that's when the real, the actually going on ground with the legal stuff happens. And that's pretty much been my journey so far.
Yeah, what a beautiful comparison, Anu. And I could totally understand all your beliefs and what all has amalgamated in the person you are today. So wonderful knowing everything about of you. So now the subsequent questions are a bit related to the theme, and since we know a bit about Jyoti, we all know there are this is the conglomerate of brands which you're heading, and there are so many brands. I mean, we all I and all the users, although I'm sure we are all following several brands of Aditya Birla. There's Louis Philippe, there's Alan Solly. While conversing with you the other day, I got to learn that you're also associated with several other designers. It includes Sabyasachi and whatnot. So exactly when the brand goes online, and when I'm sure in your career you must have seen the shift which happened from high street or from malls or shops to only online stores. So what changes you had to make in your brand strategy at that point of time, because you have seen it all? So what exactly was the difference when online, or when in times like this when everything has been taken over by online markets, I'm sure?
Yeah, sure. So I should say that, predominantly this is a brick and mortar format, we have been following for like decades, right? So about 5 or 6 years ago, I guess. So that's when like the e-commerce started picking up. And I still remember that we made a separate department for that, and that there was a separate team, and then that was working on, kind of having these going online. So legally, meaning on the legal front, I would say that, it was definitely a learning experience for us, because this was something different. It was not about, probably taking up the store and thinking of retail identity. It's more about, we having our presence in the marketplace, and then our relationship with the marketplaces, and of course there were a lot of concerns in terms of how do we handle the customers and things like that, because it's different. It was a different format as such. But then it was easy. But then what started coming in as a surprise, and because now we are completely kind of, it looks like the whole world has gone online now. There's nothing much in the brick and mortar space. That's how it seems, but it's not so. You would still want to touch a dress, feel a dress, wear it, and then buy it, right? So our stores are still functioning, they're still doing great, but then the perception today is like, oh, like the stores are not existing anymore and everybody is just buying online, right? Well, I would say that what has impacted the brand is, see, it's the brand will be the same and the customers of course will be, have to be like kind of nudged to come to the e-commerce sites to buy. And about 5 6 years, all of us here, we agree that we were not so familiar with even making payments online. We would have like those reservations, or do I have to make this payment online, or will my money get stolen by somebody, or what will happen to this, but of course we have come out of all of that, but then that was a phase then. And then many customers were probably not so much interested, and then we went for an of course it was a learning for us, and then for customers also it took some time to kind of get used to it. But in the process what I learned is online space makes it very easy for people to copy your brands, and that makes it really challenging for the brand owners, right? Compared to selling it in a store where you at least have to take a space and do it. But here it is so very easy for them. So they can just come to any marketplace and they can start selling it. And then, people do not really know whether this is a authentic stuff, whether it's a genuine stuff. So it's, I see that, for the brand owners, it's really painful to see that the brands are copied and the brands are abused like this. But then, yes, again, I see that laws are now forming up, and you see now the things are really moving on the e-commerce front with e-commerce rules, a lot of discussions around it and things like that. But a lot more needs to be done in this area. On the e-commerce front, definitely for brand owners, it's a space that causes concern, I would say. Other than all your revenues, all of that is fine, but that is where your concerns lie, because I talk about this concern because I'm in from legal, right? So that's very important for me to protect my brands.
Yes. Bang on answer by Jyoti. Anu, would you like to add something to it, especially the concerns which Jyoti spoke about when a business is working completely online?
Yeah, I think, I would like to draw a parallel, let's say, take a metaphor, when lots of fake news started coming in, right? In the last about 4 to 5 years, I know that a lot of fake news started coming in, and there was no way to understand what you're reading is real or not. But eventually, a lot of brands, a lot of new platforms came in, apps came in where you could verify whether this news is real or not. I feel like there is no such tool right now, and even if there is, it's not very popular for a common person to verify whether what I'm seeing right now online, whether this is actually from, let's take an example of Alan Solly. For example, I come across Alan Solly product online on a random website. There's no way for me to verify whether it's actually coming from the original brand, right? I think there is an absolute need to devise a tool. Like, I think all the legal fraternity should come together along with the brands to devise a tool which will become easily accessible for a lay person to verify. And I think, let's go back, right? Even before things went online, this problem existed. I remember working on Scotch Brite in the initial part of my career, and they faced this huge issue of just being copied. The packaging was copied, and it was everywhere, and they had no control over it, because how are you going to really go to every village in India and check whether, and I know what kind of a nightmare it must have been for the legal team to struggle with that kind of a challenge, that how do we really go to every village in the country, especially FMCG companies like let's say Americo or an HUL. How are they really equipped to go deeper. And that's what, so it's not just online, it used to exist offline as well. And of course, online has sort of made it even more difficult. So I do believe there needs to be some kind of a tool, whether, to verify, and everything else the legal teams are already working really hard on. I know that sometimes it's really painful to see all the effort and the hard work that's gone into creating a brand, being sold off just like that, being copied just like that. But hey, there's only so much one can do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, counterfeit products are still there, and
Yeah, it's
like you said, yeah, I mean, it's everywhere. And like you said, we can only wonder how companies and how leaders like Jyoti and Ankita are, managing all this, these threats to the brands. Ankita, please shed some light on this and your experience with products and brand protection overall.
So yes, as we've already discussed that there is a lot that goes into protecting a brand. But before protecting a brand, there is a lot that goes into the brand integrity. So when a brand is being
Yeah.
made, it attracts a lot of trust, a lot of trust, which comes with credibility of the organization, of course. So anything which is already being settled in the market, which is 20, 25, 30 years old, it has a certain value in the mind of customers, in the mind of users. And counterfeiting that particular brand in itself is a big damage, not only to the brand, but to that credibility that brand has built with its customers. So it goes a level deeper than protecting it legally, but also protecting it ethically. Now, where I agree completely with Anu when she says that there should be a tool that should be devised to know the key aspects of that particular brand and to know the source, to know the origin. But counterfeiters these days are so intelligent. Trust me when I say this, they are much, much intelligent than the customers themselves. And where we as a customer sometimes fail to go deeper into the product history, they have already done their research. The counterfeiters have already done their research, and they have counterfeited it so well that we are actually in a flex that what should be done. So I think a mechanism that currently is being followed is in the nature of creating those specific pointers to your IP. So a certain bottle designing, a certain impression in the bottle that is very specific to your design, a certain combination of colors that goes into your label that is very artistic in nature. Because while you are building a brand, counterfeiters of course do not have that amount of money, but they do have resources. So a cheap counterfeiting can be easily identified. However, for high end products, like a product costing, let's say, 1,000 rupees, so counterfeiting that product is very, very detrimental to the organization itself. And for one of our products, I would not name that product, but we had done in the past, we had changed the labeling. So the labeling was changed and new mechanisms were followed, and those were very well communicated to the customers because that product was dealing in a certain niche. And to identify that customer portal which is using that particular product is the first step to protect your brand. So while one of my product, say Parachute, is available for the mass, one of my other product, Livon, will not be for the masses. So the theory of protecting my brand to those levels would definitely go into this research that what kind of customers am I catering this product to? If a person is able to afford a 1,000 rupee product, then my responsibility as an organization to protect that product has a higher number of value. So this entire mechanism, devising the protection, devising the brand integrity, devising the kind of trust that brand plays with its customers, I think that is very, very important for the organization to ponder upon.
So can I, Vaishnavi, can I just
Yeah,
new
yeah, sure.
perspective here? While I agree that yes, you may need to have a tool to identify. You see, some of the pharma companies do have that. See, when you send an SMS with a product code, and immediately you get a response saying, okay, this product is genuine or not. But I must tell you all here that there is something called, the mindset, which amongst us, that copying is fine. And there is this word called authentic first copy. Have you heard of it? I'm sure you would
Yes.
have.
I think brands are
Original
themselves indulging
copy.
into that.
I know my head reels when I see this. I say, how can you just it's like saying authorized stealing, right? Something like that. And so that mindset is
Absolutely.
what people kind of makes people to go for buying such products. So you see, I would say that there are broadly two types of customers. There are one set of customers who are very particular that they would like to buy a Louis Philippe shirt only and nothing else, even if it sounds like Lee Philippe. So they wouldn't want to. So they would want to go for a Louis Philippe shirt, and they would probably make an effort also to find out. So I'm glad to help that person. I'm glad to tell him, okay, here is a website, here are the stores, please come by here and stuff like that. But my biggest worry is about those set of customers who just don't want to kind of they're not even bothered because of their mindset. In their mindset, they think it's perfectly fine to wear a watch, which is a first authentic copy of Swarovski, okay? And I'm just buying it for 10,000 rupees. And I tell myself that who cares, like who comes to know that it's a counterfeit product. I'm just, because what I want is to show off that I'm wearing a Swarovski watch, and I'm wearing a much expensive brand. So I feel it is this set of people, like this is what we need to change. And here is when, here is where the government has to play a role and law has to play a role here, because unless you have to change the mindset of the people. See, it's like, it's a catch-22 situation. Unless you stop the consumers, you won't be able to stop the sellers. Unless you stop the sellers, you won't be able to stop the buyers from buying it. Like which one you need to do first, or which one you need to really kill first, you really don't know, right? So that's where the law plays an important role. And this is where I always keep saying that in all fora, wherever I go, that let's really work towards getting some stringent laws for that. See, first of all, at least let there be some kind of a penalty for somebody who is selling it, right? See, today it's so easy for him to just get a bail and go scot-free. And here it is like maybe Ankita and me like probably are like slogging our day out and probably slogging nights and to find out like which lawyer to, it will be one remote corner somewhere in India. You have to go there, find a lawyer, and then probably try to kind of
Absolutely.
devise a police action. And it's so much of hard work at around, and that guy just gets a bail and just goes scot-free, and then he doesn't even matter, and the matter doesn't even lead to any conviction, right? So I feel on the one hand, like, you really need some, like fiscal, like monetary penalties, like much bigger penalties, I would say. Like it has to pinch his pocket, right? Because he's not investing anything. See, I might spend about 800 to 900 rupees probably, or 1,000 rupees to produce a shirt, but he needs about 200 rupees to produce a shirt because he just buys a sewing machine and just sits in a garage and does it, right? So he doesn't have to spend. So somewhere that monetary or those kind of stringent penalties has to be there. And secondly, as a community, as like the probably the brand community, I think we need to change the mindset of the people that this first authentic copy is just not right. You can't steal authorizedly, right? You can't steal in a legal manner. Stealing is stealing, and it's wrong. And also it should start from ourselves, because this is what I tell my every employee who gets inducted into my organization. I say, first thing that you need to do is to stop buying yourselves. Don't buy any authentic product, any authentic copy of any brand. Just stop it there, right? First, let's respect other brands, and then people probably will start respecting our brands, because it's all in the mindset, and it's just not about Aditya Birla brands or Marico brands or probably other brands, right? So that's what I would like to say, because it's just not about the tool. The tool serves purpose, but that has a very limited purpose. But
Absolutely.
the
I don't
problem is
think that,
much bigger out
yes,
there.
it doesn't change the mindset of the people. I think we all have been guilty of IP infringement sometime or the other. Haven't we downloaded movies? Haven't we downloaded songs in our days?
It's
I think we
happening.
all have done that, and we still do that. So we say that, acha, isse kisi ko kya nuksan hai? This is not destroying anyone. But are you serious? I mean, there is a copyright which goes in the artistic nature of the work. It's just not only trademark. It's just not only the trade dress, but it's an intellectual creation of a person, and you're downloading without paying, without even giving due credits to that person. That is an infringement. So
Right.
we just can't say that, these counterfeiters are at fault. I think somewhere we all are at fault, and we need to keep that check and balance amongst ourselves, that am I being a contributor to this particular infringement myself? So I think that is a question, and I would really agree with Jyoti while she says that, there is a lot goes in making these brands, but these people who are into these spurious goods, they do not even think twice. They just sit somewhere, open a small outlet, and they just start manufacturing. I think that's so unfair on so many levels, on governmental level, on a human level, that it's just beyond our control right now. And the kind of law that intellectual property is in India, I don't see a very, very definitive
Yeah.
mechanism towards it. It needs a lot of work. So
Yes.
while the concept of counterfeiting in itself is to certain amounts, it is considered as a fraud or a crime, is in itself a very big debate. So I think we all are growing
Right.
into this sector, into the brand protection, into brand integrity, valuation, that people do not understand. In fact, some of the very big luxury brands are into copying themselves. So they go out, they give permissions to sell their first copies, so that there is a well-knownness amongst the market of those customers who cannot afford their brands. So if a Louis Vuitton bag is costing 1 lakh, they would very happily be okay in selling a product which is called as a first copy in 40,000 bucks. And that's what Jyoti said, that to flaunt a bag, a person would buy it, and that would just give the brand the recognition that it desires. But it's wrong. It is certainly wrong. So
Yeah.
I think that question is
Exactly.
on ourselves.
Yeah, just to add to that, and I think brilliantly put together, both of y'all, but just to add to that, I'm sure, because you are so close to this on a day-to-day basis, I'm sure you all come across such cases, such incidents quite often. To think of it from a layman's point of view, they may not understand the kind of uh, the kind of depth in the kind of depths that we do, that hey, there's so much that goes behind creating a brand, and it's wrong and it's illegal. I mean, you don't really think of it as illegal. Like when I was in college, probably, and when I was downloading a music from a random website, or probably not buying CDs, you really don't know that you're doing something illegal, because if you knew, you would probably not do it. So I believe that along with stringent laws onto the counterfeiters, there has to be a lot more awareness for the consumers, right? For the general consumers, because think of college students, think of people who want to be cool, want to look cool, but don't have enough pocket money to do that. What is the next best thing? You think of a counterfeit product, you get easy access, you get such easy access to it, and you just pick it up. You don't even know the implications that it has on so many of the businesses, the organizations, the people like Jyoti and Ankita working really hard to protect it. I think we have to make counterfeiting, or we have to make buying these authentic originals uncool. And once we do that, through a lot of communication, and that's where behavior change communication and stuff like that can come in. once we do that, we realize that, hey, if it's not cool, it's much easier to control. Because right now, there is very little awareness on what are the legal implications. I feel like, as somebody who's been in the brand industry for so long itself, I don't 100% understand the laws and the legalities of it involved. Another thing I feel is, adding a third set of consumer to the two consumers that Jyoti already mentioned is, one, we are well educated, we're aware, we look for the signs, we look for, okay, this real, is this not, and there's a second who's aware probably but doesn't care, and there's a third set that's really unaware, that they're really ignorant of whether the product is real or not. And that's absolutely unaware. And I think that's a really scary place, because probably they have good intentions, probably they're too they're too ignorant to understand that, hey, I'm buying an actually counterfeit product. They probably am thinking that, oh, I'm using this particular brand, but actually it's not. So I think that set of audience also for me is a real concern, actually.
Right. So some changes in the legal framework are required. What I conclude from all you three, whatever you three spoke about. We also have issues wherein there are incidences of cyber squatting. So for example, like Ankita said, it is very important that any organization, be it big or small, before they get into business, they need to protect their intellectual property, your designs, your trademarks, your logos, and authenticate it. But even after that, if you go for a domain name, many times it happens that even if you own a mark, you do not get the appropriate domain name. So that is where cyber squatting comes in place. And we also lack the laws required to regulate cyber squatting. So, you all must have heard about the famous case wherein Starbucks was infringed by, and yeah, exactly, that one.
Yeah.
So we, like Nikita said previously, infringers are also very small. I think if you have your IP registered, you can still, in some way, at least have some case in your hand. So, Jyoti, what would your advice to smaller organizations or lesser known brands, or let's put it like the businesses who are trying to, get recognition for their brand? How important IP is to them? What would you advise them?
Yeah. So you see, whether it is a big business or a small business, if you want to build your business on the basis of a brand identity, okay. What I mean to say is, you're not like selling some atta and gehu and all of that, right? So you're selling a product, and you're selling a product which has an identity, right? Let's say I'm coming out with a cake. Baking business, and I would like to sell some specialized cakes and all of that. So it's not a big business, right? It may not really require a big investment, but what the entrepreneurs should understand is, IP is still asset. It's a smaller big. You are creating it, and from the day one, when you lay the first brick, you need to take appropriate, measures, suitable measures. Sorry. I'm so sorry, because there was some issue that had happened, so I just kept my phone on.
No worries.
So what is important, I would say the first step is understand, like, how do you want to identify how do you want your consumers to identify your product, right? So you will definitely come up with a name or some logo, right? That's what you would like to customers to relate to that. Great. But then how should it look like, or how should it sound like? Okay, that's second thing that you need to important. Well, then you go to probably Anu, then Anu will give you a list of names, because that's what brand marketing agencies do. Like, they are the ones who will give you a lot of names, because they're very creative. They'll come up with some names. But not everyone can afford to go to Ogilvy, right? So there are many people who are simply sitting at home, and they're just coming up with some business, and they will just pull out some name and think of that. They just discuss with their husband or their children, and then they'll just come up with name, and then quickly go ahead and register. I would say that please don't do that. I would say that, there is a free trademark search available on the trademark registry. Please, take a lawyer's help. If you don't have a lawyer friend, you can at least do it on yourself. You please go to the website, put your name there, whatever the brand or the whatever you would like to use as a trademark, and try to find out. I know it is a little challenging, but then you may need to get some external help for that. It's very, very important to see if there are any phonetically similar or visually similar brands already existing. So if you find out that there is something already existing, but you are really like hung up on one particular name and you just want to go ahead with that name, either you kind of reach out to that the person who's already owning that brand and probably take an assignment from him. That's one way of doing it. Otherwise, just stay clear of that and please come up with a new brand. And I must tell you that, the coined terms are always great. You don't have to go with some word that's there in Sanskrit or English or Kannada, whatever. You can always look at something coined, and then coined words are always great trademarks to be registered. So think of something which doesn't exist. And then that is the first step, I would say, because that is where you kind of eliminate the possibilities of potential litigations, frictions later on. See, when you are small, nobody cares, okay? But then when you grow big, that is when there will be a lot of people wanting to kind of either take away the pie of your success, or probably they want to piggy ride on your success, or probably they might want to stop you from doing certain things, maybe with a bad intent. So a lot of things will happen later. So I would only request people who are entrepreneurs, who are really going for a new brand or a brand, like creation, please take these steps so that, you are safe and you build a great asset. Like when you just buy a house, would you just simply go and buy a house just like that on a site? Would you not do a due diligence for that? Would you not check who is owning the land? Would you not check what are the land laws or the local laws and things like that, and then build, right? You're not going to build a shop in a place which is meant for a dwelling purpose, right? So it is very important. So unfortunately, intellectual property is only called as a property, but it is not perceived as a property in the minds of people. So it is indeed a property, has to be treated like an immobile property, though it's not an immobile property, but it is an intangible property, but can stay stronger on the minds of people.
Yeah, wonderful piece of advice, Jyoti. Anu, I have a question for you. Since we all are there on social media now, right? And we see there are many celebrity who endorse several brands and they also kind of influence it. Just what Elon Musk does to cryptocurrencies, to Coke, and stuff like that. So how important do you think social media presence and having a positive on social media is important for brands? Well,
Before I directly answer your question, I was a brand consultant, an independent brand consultant for about 2.5 years.
yeah.
I used to work with a lot of startups. And like Jyoti rightly mentioned, the big corporations usually go to agencies, they do the due diligence, they follow the right procedures. But, when it's a startup, it's usually someone who has a dream of starting something, of creating a product, selling a product. It is usually they come to me saying, hey, I want a name, I want a logo. That's the idea of, okay, this is all I want in terms of brand. So we spend a lot of time convincing them that, it's like you cannot build the first floor of a building without having a strong foundation. You need to spend a lot of time creating the brand's positioning, brand's personality, creating which archetype this brand fits into, what is the messaging, what is the communication pillar going to be like. So when we spend about a month, okay, doing research and creating the brand and all of that, we are actually convincing the founders that this is important for you to do. Once they finish doing that, it becomes so much difficult for then again to convince the founder that, hey, now this process is over. Now you have to go and register it. You have to trademark it. You have to do all of the legal procedures. It's last on their priority. I'm telling you from my personal experience, every startup founder, it's extremely difficult for us to convince them that this is important. What are the implications if you don't do it? You know, how is it going to? It's very easy with the larger organizations because everything is set in stone. There's a process, and they know the importance. You don't have to educate them. You don't have to start with telling the client that, hey, this will be important. Whereas when it comes to a startup, it's a huge challenge. And after a point for us also, right, it becomes challenging. Where do we put our priorities? Do we put our priorities and energies in creating this brand and telling them that, hey, all of this is important, or do we put our energies in the legal aspect of it? So we choose our battles as well, I think. So that's that, right? And I think there should be some way where the legal community can come together with the branding community somehow. There are branding agencies, hot shops that work. They are the first point of contact for any client, right? There should be some channel where they probably have like legal consultants on board. And it's easier said than done. So that's one. Second, about social media, I think when it comes to celebrities, right, the celebrity managers and the agencies that manage these celebrities, they're very clear. It's today. There have been instances in the past, right, where let's say a celebrity has said something and it has had an implication on the brand, and the other way around also, where the brand has run into some kind of a legal mess, and again it has an implication on the brand of the celebrity. So I think that kind of a field is much evolved today, where celebrity managers come into the picture. They have legal consultants. They make it very clear as to where do we draw the line, what are the consequences, what is our responsibility and what's not, because at the end of the day, they themselves are huge brands. They cannot put their own brands at stake ever for another brand that they are endorsing. So I don't think that is much of a concern. And I think right now the kind of massive madness that's happening is, of course, the burst of influencers, right, on digital media. And there are macro influencers, of course, who are much aware of how the entire process works, but there is a burst of micro influencers. Anybody today can become an influencer. So I think and there are very, very little guidelines, honestly. Forget legal, there are very little guidelines in general. We're all still trying to figure out the medium, trying to build best practices around it, trying to sort of create the right way to go about all of this. And of course, just like any novel medium that comes into the picture, it does take some time to build all of that. And I'm sure eventually things are going to be falling in place.
Wonderful. Let's hope for that. And as we are proceeding towards the end of the session, before that, I would like to hear out some concluding remarks and any other point which you had in your mind and you wanted to share. Please, this is your time. With Ankita now.
Yeah, so I think it has been a very, very informative discussion, and we've heard Anu and Jyoti at length. So the entire area of this discussion was around the big brand story, and I think we all have shared our bit where, how, and what had gone into our own journeys. And I think I would just like to conclude by saying that, whereas there is a lack of awareness, there is no proper mechanism, but we also need to reflect back on ourselves. And as very rightly mentioned by both Jyoti and Anu, that it is intellectual. So we need to see that intellectually, where a certain section of society might not even be aware about these kind of rights. I think the larger section of society now is, and since the digital era is now beginning, I think there is a lot which is required in this field. And as we being the legal eagles of this particular subject, I think the responsibility is on our shoulders to to reflect back on ourselves and to give back to the society and to make everyone aware around us that this is the kind of work that I do and I'm very proud of that. So I think that is where the step would start from.
Wonderful, Ankita. Jyoti, your concluding.
Yeah. See, I would kind of urge everyone to look at counterfeiting as just not copying of one brand or one product and things like that. It has a much larger impact, or I would say, a serious impact on the nation as a whole. It's not just about a brand getting affected, because yes, it hurts me because we are brand owners. When somebody copies, we don't like it, but then I think there is more to it. As a responsible citizen, I think it's very, very important for us to say no to counterfeiting, not just in our actions, in our buying patterns, in our behavior, in our approach, in our business models, and all of that. Because one, the counterfeiters are not going to be complying with laws when they are doing business. Let's keep that in mind. They could be even employing child labor. They could be really probably over exploiting the people, because of course they are not the people who are doing their business legally, right? And secondly, they could be funded by wrong people, or the returns or the business revenues could be going to fund illegal activities, or sometimes antisocial activities, anti-national activities. Like, it's known that also that some of these counterfeiters have funded the terrorist activities, right? So it has a much, much bigger, impact on the society and on the nation as a whole. And just to give you some numbers, like, it was, I think, more than a year back, but we were referring to these numbers, and very surprised to know the counterfeit market that exists across the world is more than $3 trillion. Can you imagine that? So we are still wondering, India wants to be a $1 trillion economy, right? So, the counterfeit market put together is a $1 trillion economy across the world, and it is growing much rapidly. So it's very important for us to stop it, at least contain it, if not stop it. Okay, and it starts with the mindset first, as we all agreed. And then, of course, it has to be supported by the legal system, right? And because there have to be laws that have to kind of discourage people from doing it, number two. And of course, all other awareness activities, like these kind of things, definitely, like all of us here and many others can definitely talk more on the social media and talk, really make, it's just a service to the community, that let's talk more about the brands, let's tell them that let's not do it. It's just not, I'm not talking only about my brands, I'm saying any brand. In fact, if you look at safety gears, any brand dealing with safety gears, my goodness, it's going to be like life threatening, right? If you're going to use a wrong or you're going to
Absolutely.
a very faulty equipment, thinking that it's manufactured by one of the best brands. So you can just imagine it can be life threatening. It takes away the taxes from the government. It can lead to exploitation of people, and it can lead to like a lot of funding of antisocial activities and things like that. So keeping all that in mind, let's say no to let's to counterfeits. I talked about various things, so let's go with that. That's my message.
Oh, wonderful message, Jyoti. So there has to be more awareness, intellectual property as well, and say no to counterfeiting. Wonderful key takeaway. Over to you, Anu.
Yeah, I think it was a really interesting session, firstly, because it was from a legal point of view. So it was really interesting to interact with these two really strong women who are working hard to sort of protect brands. I think for me, like Jyoti also mentioned, that a tougher legal infrastructure along with on ground awareness is really essential to create that kind of effect, because it's a huge monster, right? And you really need to sort of do everything in your capacity to deter it. Second is, right here, some initiatives like these where you bring different industries together, different stakeholders together, have more conversations about what can be done together, coming together, interacting with each other. Because on one hand, I'll tell you, I have worked with a lot of brands, and my interaction with the legal team is up to, hey, do you approve this? Do you not approve this? Or let's take care of the. So I'm saying that more and more different segments coming together and devising strategies, and like I said, having some form of access for a consumer to verify, to find out, to be aware if they're not aware. So these are my points, and I'm really glad that I could be a part of this session. So thank you, and thank you everyone on the panel and all the participants.
Wonderful. So with that, I'm done with all of my questions. This was really insightful session. We heard everything right from how to protect your brand, how to maintain your brand integrity, why trust of your customers is important, and what lies in core of protecting your brands from being copied or counterfeited. And we covered it all wonderfully. So thank you, ladies. Thank you for your wonderful time. We'll be sharing snippets of this our chat on social media, wherein there would be a specific question and the answers which you gave to it. So thank you for being givers and sharing with us. So that's me, Vaishnavi Joshi, signing off. And
Thank you,
hope
Thank
to
you,
chat
everyone.
with all of
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.